everyone, and welcome to another of our December adult story times. Story times for adults. I'm Katie, your host from Adult Services, and today we are going to read an essay about Kwanzaa and celebrating Kwanzaa. So I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you learn something from it. This essay was written by Tonya Abari, and she wrote it for Zora.medium.com. Tonya Abari is a writer and a storyteller, and you can find her on Instagram. Her username is @IamTabari. That's Tabari. So this essay is titled, I Celebrate Kwanzaa. Do you? And it was originally published December 30th, 2019. So here we go. I celebrate Kwanzaa. Do you? The Black cultural tradition lives on, and here's why I decided to bring it into my home and introduce it to my daughter. Kwanzaa turned 50 the same year my daughter had her first birthday. In commemoration, our local library held a read aloud for families with small children. Storytime was a humble start, but this was a welcome opportunity to learn more about Kwanzaa. Habari gani, the librarian said to a handful of fidgety toddlers. As jubilation filled the room, I took a quick inventory of the number of people who had come to learn about this Black holiday. Noticing that we were one of only 3 families in attendance gave me pause. Is Kwanzaa losing its popularity? I quickly put that thought aside. Though it was the only public observation nearby, and despite low attendance, we were still very excited to be there. After all, neither myself nor my spouse, a first-generation Nigerian American, grew up observing Kwanzaa. In fact, I only first learned about the 7-day celebration in high school when my teacher invited me to participate in the after-school collective, Umoja. To help amplify their mission of operational unity, Umoja held a celebratory program each year before the holiday break. Informational in nature, the group showed other students how to celebrate whilst highlighting the greater importance of embracing Kwanzaa's values beyond the holiday. Initially, I was eager to participate, but I eventually stopped attending meetings. The truth is, I lost interest when family ignored exuberant requests to honor the tradition at home. It wasn't until many years later, when I became a mother, that I began to seriously think about Kwanzaa again. Founded in 1966 by author and activist Maulana Karenga, Kwanzaa is a week-long festival that honors African heritage and celebrates Blackness. Observed annually from December 26th to January 1st, its premise is firmly rooted in family, community, and culture. Kwanzaa has 7 core principles, or Nguzo Saba. Umoja, unity. Kujichagulia, self-determination. Ujima, collective work and responsibility. Ujamaa, cooperative economics. Nia, purpose. Kuumba, creativity. And Imani, faith. Festivities include ceremonial symbols such as pouring libations to the ancestors, lighting 7 daily candles on the kinara, candle holder, and feasting, karamu, on the final day of celebration. In a 2009 interview, Keith A. Mays, author and African American Studies professor at the University of Minnesota, stated that, quote, the big boom in Kwanzaa came during its first 2 decades, end quote, and that, quote, participation has since leveled off, end quote. However, according to a 2012 study conducted by Public Policy Polling, nearly 13 million people celebrated Kwanzaa in the United States, a significant increase from the estimated 2 million people that Mays mentioned 3 years prior to this study. Since its inception, Kwanzaa has experienced both peaks and valleys. As of late, it appears that less people are observing publicly, which brings us back to the question I asked myself at the library. Has Kwanzaa lost its popularity? If so, then why? Philadelphia-based Pan-African scholar and educator Akil Parker admits that his own active participation has dwindled over the years. However, Parker still undoubtedly believes that Kwanzaa serves to lead us toward liberation and that its principles are a legitimate means of promoting humanity in the context of African culture. We can only speculate reasons for the ebb and flow of Kwanzaa consciousness in a larger pop cultural sense, but, quote, perhaps some abstain from celebrating because of the founder's questionable past, end quote, says Parker. Quote, we must remember that although Karenga formalized and ritualized some of our ancient principles in an order that our Black community could benefit, the ideas embedded within Kwanzaa predate its founder by thousands of years, end quote. Another possibility for some pushback is the contradiction between Kwanzaa's principles and American consumerism. Quote, in the 1990s, when Hallmark started making Kwanzaa cards, we witnessed how consumerism negatively impacted the holiday, end quote, says Parker. Quote, in order to profit from a niche market, the Diversity Initiative served as an updated subterfuge for the maintenance of global white supremacy. The principles of Ujima and Ujima'a are opposed to the tenets of capitalism and meant to return us to a more traditional African communalism that our ancestors once practiced, end quote. I guess this explains why I've had so much difficulty finding a kinara in the mainstream marketplace. Parker says that, quote, individuals can implement kuumba, or creativity, by making their own kinaras, just like my own father, who made the candle holder from scrap wood, end quote. Mays has a different take on the popularity question. Quote, it's too hard to figure out who's currently celebrating Kwanzaa as we move into a new decade, he says. There's a sense that it's not popular anymore, but it depends on how we are measuring this, end quote. The casual aspects of the holiday are still popular, quote, because there are normally one or two celebrations conducted by cultural centers in big cities each year, he says. Notwithstanding quantitative data, testimonial evidence supports the notion that Kwanzaa is still generally widespread. In Charlotte, for example, Janaka Bowman-Lewis, PhD, has noticed a recognizable drop-off in the number of adolescents and younger millennials celebrating Kwanzaa. But she says the older generations show up en masse. Quote, Charlotte's annual citywide Kwanzaa celebration garners a much stronger attendance, comprised mostly of elders, middle-aged parents, and their young children, quote, she says. Bowman-Lewis colleague and chair of Africana Studies at UNC Charlotte, Julia Jordan-Zachary, also noted that her multi-generational family still participates in Kwanzaa celebrations, quote, from North Carolina all the way to Barbados, end quote. Writer Nicole S. Jr., who runs a writing workshop named Roots, Wounds, Words, has celebrated Kwanzaa with her family in Brooklyn for the past 29 years. Quote, each year for 7 days, our Bed-Stuy brownstone's garden level is packed wall to wall with family, neighbors, and church friends, Jr. says. Growing up, Jr. was unaware of any other Kwanzaa celebrations in her neighborhood because, with her now almost 99-year-old grandmother leading the charge, their home was the epicenter of celebration. When I unpacked the seasonal holiday decorations this year, my child, now almost 5 years old, begged me to assemble the mkeka mat. I did. Unaware that I was listening, she recited several principles as she placed the candles into the kinara. For me, that was confirmation of Kwanzaa's impact. It's not just as a holiday, but as a timeless and values-based celebration of our heritage. Kwanzaa was purposely positioned at the end of the year in order to allow time for reflection and goal setting for the future. Based on my findings, I've come to realize how important it is for me to initiate cultural rituals in my own home. I share May's ideology on all Black holiday traditions and that, quote, perennially, celebrations like Kwanzaa can advance the dialogue about the complexities of Black Americans celebrating mainstream holidays, end quote. Therefore, regardless of any trends, my family will continue to celebrate Kwanzaa. This year, 2019, in addition to celebrating in our home, we will attend local events hosted by Nashville's African American Cultural Alliance and Global Education Center, an anti-bias educational center where my daughter takes African dance classes. Kwanzaa is a call to purpose. In celebrating, I understand that my daughter is internalizing Kwanzaa's overarching principles. As a result, I can only imagine the contributions she'll make to her community and to the world. Well, again, I hope you enjoyed that wonderful essay by Tonya Abari, originally published on zora.medium.com last December 30th, 2019. If you celebrate Kwanzaa, I hope you have a wonderful Kwanzaa season this year. And if you want to learn more about Kwanzaa, which I hope you do if you don't already, there are so many great resources online that can help you learn more about pronunciations, learn more about each of the Nguzo Saba, which are the principles. Again, those were Umoja, which was unity, Kujichagulia, which is self-determination, Ujima, which is collective work and responsibility, Ujamaa, cooperative economics, Nia, purpose, Kuumba, creativity, and Imani, faith. Each one has many wonderful folk tales associated with it, as well as practices to bring those core principles to the forefront of each day's celebration. And I think it's really wonderful to spend some time this year learning about things that maybe you didn't know before. If you haven't guessed, I do love learning about new things, and I love sharing that knowledge with people, and I love giving voice to people in the community who otherwise might not get a moment to talk about Kwanzaa this year or any year. So with that said, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I hope you stay healthy and stay safe, and we'll see you at the next story time. Bye!